Awards Luncheon. At this time, I would like to introduce the President of Prince George's County Crime Solvers, Mr. J. Perry.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm the current president of the Prince George's County Crime Solvers, and on behalf of the entire board of directors, I'd like to thank you for coming today to support the Detectives and Deputies of the Year Awards Luncheon. Today, we will recognize Prince George's County Police Detectives and Sheriff Deputies for their superior work ethic, outstanding investigative savvy, and tenacity while working a significant case or multiple cases. And I speak for the entire board when I say we're extremely proud to host this event. Now, these events, as we all know, do not get underway without a lot of hard work and focused effort. So before we begin, I'd like our chair of this event and our coordinator to please stand and be recognized for that hard work. Carol Brown and Zell Windsor. Carol's in the back running away, I think. And for the record, if you enjoy yourselves today, the entire board would like to take credit. However, if anything goes wrong, I've just clearly identified the two people responsible. Just kidding. We're shooting for a lunchtime of around noon, so we're running a little behind, so I commit to be brief and only talk about 3 points for crime solvers: what we do, who we are, and what our vision is. Simply, as crime solvers, our goal is to get information that leads to arrests. We call those tips. In exchange for that information, we offer anonymity and cash rewards for tips that lead to an arrest. Anyone can call in at any time and get an ID number and check if those tips lead to an arrest. Now, who we are is a national organization. Crime Solvers, which is typically referred to or is commonly referred to as Crime Stoppers, was started in 1975. And since that time, we've cleared over 1 million cases, over 700,000 arrests, and over $4 billion recovered in drug and property. Your local Crime Solvers was started here in the county in 1979 and consists of 25 business and community leaders. Crime Solvers locally is one of the most respected and admired boards in the nation. Since over the last 5 years, our tips have led to over 200 arrests. Over the past 3 years, our tips leading to arrests have increased year by year by 250%. Our tips received have led to arrests for petty crime all the way up to the East Coast rapist. At the beginning of this year, we launched our Student Crime Solvers program, which has taken a long time to get in the local high schools. We're very proud of this program. So now, anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, students via text, phone call, or our website can call in and give anonymous tips for anything that they see in the school system. We believe this is a huge movement for a safer school system. Now, in January of this year, to prove that point, we had multiple tips come in via text and social media that led to an arrest of a student that was threatening to stab multiple classmates. Our vision for Crime Solvers is to grow significantly over the next few years. We expect to increase our tips by 30%. Now, our success is going to be predicated on what has led to our past success. And that revolves around our relationship with the police department. I would like to specifically thank you, Chief McCall, for your continued leadership and partnership with us. And our county executive is not here yet, but I'd like to thank him for his support of our program. So in closing, I would ask you, everyone here today, when you leave, to think about how you can create awareness for Crime Solvers. And please engage with the board members that are here today to tell us how we can work better for you. Because we're in a support role in our mutual endeavor to put the right people behind bars, and we clearly know that you're doing the heavy lifting. So today, I thank you. I give congratulations to the recipients today, and I thank you all for coming and your service. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome our County Executive, Rushern Baker.
Thank you very much. I won't be long because I know you've got a list of speakers here and we really want to get to the awardees. I do want to say this. The chief and I were talking as I was sitting there, and we were talking about the progress we've made over these last 5 years in reducing crime in Prince George's County. This is the partnership up here on stage. You think about where we were when we started, and the chief, Angela, and the sheriff and I go back and forth as to whether it was 12 homicides in 12 days, 14 homicides in 14 days, 13 homicides. Whatever it was too many. And we knew the only way we were going to get a handle around it was to come together and actually come up with a strategy, not to solve and prosecute those crimes, but to put together a long-term strategy to reduce crime, overall crime, in Prince George's County. And we've done that. Even though our numbers have ticked up this year, if you look at overall crime, it's down in Prince George's County. So I think they deserve a round of applause for the work that they've done. But none of that work could have taken place if we didn't have crime solvers, if we didn't have the tips, if we didn't have the leads, if we didn't have a place where people could call in and feel comfortable of sharing information. This organization, you who dedicate your time and efforts and volunteer to crime solvers, are the reason why we've been able to drive those numbers down. But more importantly, you're the reason why we've been able to sustain it over this period of time. You're the reason why your involvement, your work, your dedication is the reason why long after I am no longer county executive, we will see these numbers continue to decline. Because we'll have men and women like yourselves who are concerned about the safety and well-being of people you don't know and probably will never meet. That is the highest form of public service, and that's what you are. God bless you.
Please welcome your state's attorney, the Honorable Angela Alsobrooks.
Good afternoon, everybody. It really is an honor to be here this afternoon. I want to thank Crime Solvers for hosting today's luncheon and say congratulations to all the deputies and detectives that we're honoring today. I want to thank you, just to give you a really special personal thank you for the work that you do, not only as your state's attorney, and it really has been, I tell you, the greatest honor of my life to have the chance to represent this community where I have lived my entire life. All 44 years have been here, and so this is a really big honor for me. But I want to say thank you, a very personal thank you, for not just what you do, but for how you do it. I'm thinking Lieutenant Harvin, I happened to see him here. I was planning to mention him. We had a chance to meet this morning, as we do each Wednesday, to talk about the homicides in the county and to talk about the rapes in the county, and learn that Lieutenant Rob Harvin, for example, was on his 30th hour. Had not been asleep yet, was working last night. We had 2 homicides, and lo and behold, I walk into this event and it's not over yet, and that was at 9 o'clock this morning, that he had worked for 30 hours. His commitment has not waned. He was there to provide information and to talk through the cases with us. He is truly excellent, and he is just an example of what we see in each of you every single day. I think about the case of Detective Bellino, who was in our office last week investigating a homicide, and he had not been home for 3 days. In fact, he was in our office 3 days in a row. He had the same clothes on because he was investigating a homicide. He was preparing to testify in a case, and as well was working on another case. He had not been home to his family in 3 days. That is what I have come to know about the officers and the deputies as well, who protect us so well in the courtrooms. When we have a case like a Brian Mayhew, I sat in the courtroom and counted 18 sheriff's deputies who were required to be in the courtroom to protect our assistant state's attorneys, to protect the other witnesses in those cases, and nobody does it any better than you do. And when you show up at a home in a case of domestic violence, Our sheriff deputies are there as well. And so it's not just what you do that makes me so proud to be your state's attorney, but also to be a resident of this county, to be a mother in this county, to be somebody's daughter who lives here, to know that we have the caliber of officers who work in this county every day and represent us. I tell you, it could not have been done any better. So I say thank you for your commitment. I thank you for the sacrifices that you make. I know that the world doesn't always get to see those sacrifices, but we do, and we appreciate them so very much. Today's recognition is very, very well deserved, and so we say thank you for what you do. May God continue to bless and protect all of you all as well. And I want to honor, I see Stacy Cobb, one of our assistant state's attorneys, who is here as well, and our partnership, I have to say, I am truly proud of. I started in the office in 1997, and I cannot remember a time where the relationships among all of us have been as strong as they are today, and it's because of you all. It's because of our county executive and the chief and the sheriff. Thank you so much, all right, and God bless all of you.
Thank you. Please welcome our sheriff, the Honorable Melvin High.
Thank you, Captain, and good afternoon to everyone. Certainly to our platform speakers here, our team of public safety leaders who made a real difference in our community. But I also want to take a moment to first thank all of our members who will receive some recognition today for what you are and what you do. You know, we all need heroes, particularly in public safety. The work isn't easy. And so when we go about this hard work, when all of the members out there on our streets and byways and so forth, when they go about this work, we need people to point to say, when you get a little tired, when it gets a little hard, there goes an example. And so these are examples of good work and how you do it and how you stay strong in doing and making this effort. Let me also thank crime solvers for the work that you do. As I say over and over again, and many of you in Crime Solvers have heard me, and all of the others have heard me say that sometimes we need a little bit of extra help that makes a difference in solving cases so that ultimately that becomes crime prevention. And so the work that you do in terms of helping to create funds and resources for us to help people come forward and share information with our detectives, with our officers and our deputies, so that these cases get solved and solved in a timely way is so very critical and invaluable in making our community a safe place. And so in that regard, to all of our Crime Solvers partners and really to all of the deputies and officers who are receiving recognition and all of our agency members, and certainly I don't want to leave out the state's attorney because at the end of the day, we have to bring the matter to closure, and that's where good work happens as well. But you just do such good work for us. And so on behalf of every citizen of Prince George's County, as the elected sheriff, I say to all of you on behalf of every citizen, thank you for that work and ask you to continue to do that work. Let me also acknowledge a good friend of mine, a person who started something important in our community, and that's Sheriff Jimmy Aloisi. And Jimmy is here today, and he's been on the board. Even back when I was in the police department, Jimmy was there and helping and giving me advice and guidance. But Jimmy started something in the sheriff's office that's continuing today, and that's our domestic violence intervention initiative that focused on serving protective orders and peace orders, et cetera. And Jimmy, we're still trying to carry out that initiative and honor the legacy that you had there with that and making a difference, because if we're going to be a great community, we have to have healthy families, and healthy families make for a healthy community. And so thank you for starting that, and we're trying to continue on with it. Let me also take a moment to thank our county executive for the work and the leadership he does for our community. Over the last 5 years or so, we made good strides in Prince George's County in a lot of fronts, not just public safety, but a lot of fronts we made good strides. And it takes leadership to make that happen. And it's got to be leadership that not only has vision and ideas, but an ability to implement those ideas. Because ultimately, if you don't implement a great idea, it becomes meaningless. And so my hat's off to you, Mr. County Executive. Thank you, sir. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And last but not least, our Chief of Police, Mark McCall.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'll be short here. Just a few things I wanted to touch on. First of all, I wanted to thank the Executive Board of Crime Solvers, and Jay, thank you for what you do. It's hard to put it in terms of what Crime Solvers does for us. Every day, you know, over the last 5 years, we've lowered crime significantly across the board, but it's because of your help with that. To a point that Crime Solvers is a part of our crime strategy. Yesterday, we had an issue yesterday afternoon, and when I first talked, the first time I talked to Lieutenant Harvin yesterday, I think I talked 3 or 4 times, but the first time, there were already 2 calls that had come into Crime Solvers in reference to that case. And those tips are being followed up now, and most likely are going to lead to the closure of this case. So that's the value of Crime Solvers. But also for the Executive Board and your President, Jay Perry, you guys listen, and that's a great thing. Rewards have gone up. What used to be a $1,000 reward is going to $2,500. So if you have information on a stolen gun or someone carrying a gun, that's no longer $1,000, $2,500. All of these things help us reduce crime. And first of all, I just wanted to start with you and to thank you for what you do. I found a very short quote that I just wanted to start with here, and I won't be long, I promise. Productivity is never an accident. It's the result of commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. That's who these investigators are that you're going to hear from today. We come here to congratulate and to celebrate their efforts every day. There's none better. We go all over the country now over the last 5 years. I'm telling you, there's not a better police department, and there's certainly not better investigators anywhere in the country. So thank you guys for what you do. We're going to talk about a few cases, I think 10 or 12, but that represents hundreds of cases every day, hundreds of investigators pouring their heart and soul into this job. You're going to hear about dedication, you're going to hear about tenacity, about determination and compassion. These men and women, again, really are the heart and soul of this police department. Some of the cases that earned awards, homicide case, armed robbery, illegal pharmaceutical prescriptions, fraudulent cases, drug trafficking, just to mention a few. You know, it's been mentioned today just how hard these investigators work. And literally, I see it every day. Almost every day, I have to tell people to go home. Go home. I said it to Rob Harvin. I turned around, he's sitting there, and we were up most of the night. But he's been up, you know, straight 30-some hours. Go home. But that kind of commitment and dedication, you can't buy. You just can't. And that's some of the things you're going to hear today. You know, being an investigator is different than most jobs. You can't walk away from cases. They haunt you. They just do. You're sitting on the beach, you're supposed to have 5 days off with your family, and you're sitting on the beach thinking, what should have I done? What could have I done? What do I have to do? What's the next step? Those thoughts never leave your mind. And that's the kind of men and women in this room. That's why we're honoring them today, because they step up to that challenge every day. You know, a lot of times you hear police work can't be personal. If you're going to survive, you can't allow it to become personal. These investigators, to get to the point that they are, it becomes personal to them. And when it becomes personal, you leave a part of your heart, a part of your soul on every one of these crime scenes. You just do. If you ask them or you watch them on a scene of a violent crime, I see it. But they do it willingly. They do it because it's their calling. And everything that this organization does helps them do their job better. Retired Chief Rhodes, I saw him last week, and he said, I need to talk to you, and he pulled me in the corner, and I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. What did I do? What did I do? He was at a retirees meeting at the FOP, and he said, I need to talk to you about the retirees. And I was like, oh, geez. He said, there's a group of homicide investigators that are retired, and they want to come back and help with cold case homicides, which obviously I jumped at the opportunity to do that. But he said, and it reinforces what I've been saying, these guys are waking up in the middle of the night, they've been retired for 15 years, and they remember the homicide they were on in 1972 that they didn't close. That's the kind of pressure, that's the kind of environment these men and women work in every day. And they accept it willingly. And I just can't say enough about them. Is there family members in here? How many family members do we have in here? Anybody? Couple. Thank you guys, because you put up with us. And when you don't come home for 3 days and you call your wife, I'm not coming home, a lot of times questions, where are you? But we can't do this job without your help. We just can't. You can't do this job if you're worried about the kids at home or about a problem with your roof or whatever. And it takes a strong wife or husband, partner, to pick up that slack so these guys can do what they do. So for the family members here, thank you. And for the investigators here, don't ever take your families for granted. They're an important part to what we do. To all the investigators here today and to all the recipients, thank you for your sacrifices, your dedication, your perseverance, and your compassion. You guys make us who we are. You guys make us better every day, and it's my honor to be the chief to work with you guys every day. So thank you for what you do.
All right, to our award recipients this afternoon, as I call your name, please come forward and take your place on the stage right here next to me. And if I could have all of our seated members rise, and I'll read write-ups. Our first award goes to Detective Shawn Deere with the Homicide Unit. On August 10th, 2014, at approximately 1:43 p.m., Prince George's County Police responded to 6915 Forest Terrace in Hyattsville for the report of a shooting. Upon arrival, police located the decedent, a little 3-year-old girl with trauma to the upper body. The preliminary investigation revealed that earlier in the day, the gunman had gotten into an argument over clothing with someone at the home. The suspect left the residence, came back a short time later with a gun, and randomly fired several shots into the home. One of the random bullets hit the little girl who was there visiting relatives as she played in an upstairs bedroom. The intended target, a boy in his late teens, was not even home at the time of the shooting. This senseless crime rattled the community and weighed heavy on investigators. Detective Deere was assigned the case and led the investigation. Detective Deere began locating and interviewing multiple witnesses. Through the community's involvement, invaluable information was obtained to include identifying who the shooter was, Devon Wallace. An arrest warrant was issued for Wallace, charging him with first-degree murder. On September 5th, the FBI Baltimore Cross-Border Task Force and Prince George's County Police Department asked for the public's help in locating Wallace. The Maryland United States Attorney's Office charged Wallace with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Agents and detectives believe Wallace fled Prince George's County and may have been hiding in Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, or in the Winston-Salem, North Carolina area. The FBI offered an additional reward of up to $20,000 for information leading to Wallace's arrest. Over the next several weeks, detectives and agents spent thousands of hours following up on tips and leads trying to track down the fugitive. On September 16th, after 38 days on the run, detectives tracked Wallace down, hiding in an apartment in Washington, D.C., where he was taken into custody. During the course of this investigation, a second suspect was identified and located. That suspect waived his Miranda rights and confessed to his involvement in the murder. He was also charged with first-degree murder. For his dedication and exemplary performance during this investigation, Detective Deere has earned Detective of the Year award.
All right, everyone, 3, 1, 2, and 3. That's the stuff, guys. Thank you. Congratulations.
Detective Shanice Singh with the robbery unit. On September 22nd, 2014, at 8 p.m., a suspect robbed the Superfood Mart at 4705 Raleigh Road in Temple Hills. The victim stated the suspect entered the store and followed him to the cashier's office. As the victim quickly attempted to close the door behind him, the suspect grabbed the door and a struggle ensued. The suspect verbally implied that he had a weapon and was reaching for his waistband area. In fear for his life, the victim gave in to the suspect's demands. The suspect ran to the cash register, opened it, and stole approximately $1,000 in cash. The suspect turned back towards the victim, implying he had a weapon again, and fled the store. Detective Singh was assigned the case. She immediately began conducting interviews and reviewing surveillance video from the store that captured images of the suspect. From the images, Detective Singh generated Crime Solvers reward flyers. The flyers were posted in the community and distributed to the media. On September 29th, 2014, at approximately 8 a.m., Detective Singh's resourcefulness paid off. After viewing a picture of the suspect via the Prince George's County Police Department's Wanted Wednesdays blog, Detective Singh received information from an anonymous source on the whereabouts of the suspect wanted in the robbery, and that they overheard the suspect confessing to committing the robbery. Through Detective Singh's outstanding investigative skills, she was able to obtain an exact time and location where the suspect would be. The next day, Detective Singh arrested the suspect without incident. He was transported to the Criminal Investigation Division Robbery Unit to be interviewed. During the interview, the suspect waived his constitutional rights and provided a verbal statement detailing his involvement in the robbery, bringing this case to a successful closure. Without the valuable information and assistance from the community, this suspect most likely would still be on the run. For her outstanding investigative skills and resourcefulness, Detective Singh is being presented with a Detective of the Year award.
All right, everyone, looking this way, please. Go on 3, 1, 2, and 3. Great. Right here, please. And hold for this young lady right here. That's all right. Thank you. Congratulations.
Detective Natalie Gaston, Narcotics Enforcement Division. During 2014, Detective Gaston, along with members of DEA Group 333 Tactical Diversion Group, conducted an investigation into a large-scale, multi-jurisdictional illegal pharmaceutical prescription distribution and forgery organization. Wow. Detective Gaston and Group 33 monitored 5 phone lines as part of a federal T3 investigation. The organization was responsible for illegally preparing numerous fraudulent prescriptions and filling them at various pharmacies throughout the region, including Prince George's County. The primary drug distributed in this investigation was oxycodone. As the lead investigators in this case, Detective Gaston used numerous investigative techniques to include multiple undercover operations, which eventually led to the federal Title III interceptions. After months of gathering intelligence and evidence, the Operation Takedown occurred in 2015. The enforcement operations included the execution of 13 federal search warrants and the federal criminal indictments and arrest of 16 individuals involved in this investigation. As a direct result of Detective Gaston's coordinated efforts, approximately $60,000 in cash, a Smith & Wesson revolver, a Cadillac Escalade, and a Chevy Camaro, numerous fraudulent prescriptions, Schedule II pharmaceutical invoices, and inventory sheets were seized. For her exemplary performance in dismantling this large-scale, multi-jurisdictional, illegal pharmaceutical prescription distribution and forgery organization, Detective Gaston is awarded the Detective of the Year Award.
We'll go with this young man first, please. Appreciate it.
I did too.
No problem. We'll go with this guy next. This young man. Thank you. Hold the spot on top of that. And on 3, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you all.
Lieutenant Charles Dooley, the Regional Investigations Division, Northern Region. During 2014, Lieutenant Dooley began investigating what was initially believed to be squatters living in a house. As his investigation progressed, Lieutenant Dooley noticed several irregularities in a suspect's claims of having purchased the house at a tax sale. Lieutenant Dooley continued to obtain evidence and was able to secure court-ordered search warrants for the suspect's residence, vehicle, post office box, and real estate office. Lieutenant Dooley quickly identified an additional 5 homes in Prince George's County that were obtained through fraudulent property deeds. He also identified 2 properties obtained by 2 additional suspects, as well as 3 townhouses that were being rented. Lieutenant Dooley's investigation led him to assisting ASRC Federal, a government defense contractor, and the United States Postal Service in an $86,000 check fraud case involving the primary suspect. Lieutenant Dooley also assisted Veterans Affairs with their prosecution of the suspect and her associate for theft of a VA credit card and subsequent $6,000 shopping spree, and the IRS with their investigation of the suspect's identity theft and tax fraud. In total, Lieutenant Dooley's investigation identified several properties, fraudulent checks, and purchases in excess of $2.4 million. As a result of Lieutenant Dooley's determination, initiative, and expertise, the 3 main suspects in this case were arrested and successfully prosecuted. Lieutenant Dooley is hereby named the Detective of the Year.
Going on 3, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Detective Kenneth Smith, Regional Investigation Division, Central Region. On the afternoon of December 30th, 2014, the District 3 Special Assignment Team was on patrol in the area of Marlboro Pike and Forest Run Drive. The officers observed a black Audi A8L that had a suspended registration. Before making the traffic stop, the driver pulled in front of 3206 Forest Run Drive and walked inside the residence. Detective Smith recognized the driver, who had been arrested multiple times prior for possession with intent to distribute controlled dangerous substances and handgun charges. Minutes later, the driver exited the residence and re-entered the vehicle. Officers conducted the traffic stop on the black Audi. While talking to the driver, he began to sweat, jumble his words, and grab his waistband as if he was attempting to conceal something. They also noticed a large amount of U.S. currency in the cup holder. The officers asked the driver to exit the vehicle. While doing so, he threw out a clear plastic bag containing 26 grams of crack cocaine valued at $5,200. A search of the vehicle revealed an additional 2 grams of crack cocaine valued at $400 and $1,424 in U.S. currency. The suspect was transported to the District 3 station to be interviewed. During the interview, the suspect provided a verbal statement that he had additional crack at his residence on Forest Run Drive and gave Detective Smith his consent to search. The results of Detective Smith's search prevented an additional 120 grams of crack cocaine valued at $24,000 and 87 grams of powder cocaine valued at $8,700 from making its way to the streets of Prince George's County. For his excellent interrogation and investigative skills, Detective Smith has earned the Detective of the Year award. Detectives Paul Sparacino and Brian Rotenberg, the Regional Investigation Division, Central Region. During November of 2014, Detectives Sparacino and Rotenberg were investigating a string of residential breaking and entering incidents occurring in broad daylight in Upper Marlboro. In a span of 2 days, 3 homes within walking distance of each other had been targeted. There was no specific method for entering the residence. Doors and windows at the affected homes were breached. Items taken included jewelry, cash, and in one case, a Mossberg shotgun and Night Stalker pellet gun. On November 12, 2014, at approximately 12 noon, Detective Sparacino and Detective Rotenberg responded to the community for a reported breaking and entering in progress. Communications advised a witness observed 2 juvenile males walk into a neighbor's backyard and onto the porch, while a third juvenile sat on an electric box in the front yard holding a brown Louis Vuitton bag. Upon arrival, Detective Sparacino and Detective Rotenberg observed the juvenile walking away from the neighborhood carrying the brown Louis Vuitton bag. Detective Sparacino and Detective Rotenberg stopped the juvenile in order to identify him and to determine his recent whereabouts. The juvenile stated he was a student at Largo High School and that he was walking to school right now, which was in the opposite direction of his travel. When the detectives questioned the juvenile about the bag, he stated it was given to him by 2 unknown strangers. The juvenile unzipped the bag, revealing a silver object, which was believed to be a handgun, and 10 individually packaged bags of suspected marijuana. A check of the home revealed the screen of a rear window had been removed, but no entry was made due to an alarm system being activated. The witness identified the juvenile as being the individual on the victim's property. The juvenile was arrested and transported to the District 2 station, where he waived his Miranda rights and admitted to his involvement in the attempted burglary. During their investigation, a second suspect was developed and arrested. The second suspect admitted his involvement in the burglary ring and provided information about an additional individual involved in the burglary. The second suspect also agreed to take the detectives to where they hid the guns. With the assistance of K-9, both weapons stolen during the burglary were recovered in a wooded area of the neighborhood. As a result of their investigation skills, 4 juveniles were arrested, the 2 weapons were recovered, and a sense of peace was restored to the community. For their outstanding teamwork and investigative skills, these detectives have earned Detective of the Year awards.
Those possible. Here we go on 3, 1, 2. 2, and 3. Thank you all. Good job. Thank
you. Detective Diane May, Regional Investigation Division, Southern Region. For the relentless efforts by Detective Diane May during the investigations of numerous theft from autos, jump-ins, which occurred in the Southern region during the 2014 calendar year. As a result of her efforts, a prolific theft ring was put to an end. The operation began in 2014 through historical data related to an ongoing theft fraud investigation involving several hundred theft from auto cases compiled by Detective May nearly 5 years earlier. The collection of information from her investigations in the Southern region was coordinated with local and federal law enforcement agencies throughout Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. The operation rapidly expanded and developed into a federal investigation. Eventually, the Washington Area Vehicle Enforcement Unit and the Baltimore Field Office of the FBI joined in the investigation and provided her with additional resources and manpower. This additional assistance was needed as she began to focus on several groups of offenders who were later discovered to be working for one higher authority. Detective May coordinated and led numerous multi-jurisdictional meetings, which resulted in the sharing of critical information related to several hundred vehicle theft and fraud cases. Detective May's technical expertise in the area of crime scene processing, along with her tireless efforts, were crucial factors as she personally viewed hours of surveillance and video footage. Her unyielding professional efforts resulted in the identification of multiple suspects as well as their successful prosecution. During the course of Detective May's investigation, approximately 300 cases representing well over $5 million in monetary losses were linked to one crime ring. 14 suspects were indicted under the Federal Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Statute as a direct result of her work. And she is hereby named the Detective of the Year. Detective Derek McDermott, Regional Investigation Division, Southern Region. On September 13th, 2014, Detective McDermott began investigating a citizen armed robbery and assault that occurred in the 5900 block of Fisher Road in Temple Hills. Detective McDermott's initial investigation revealed while a Papa John's employee was making a delivery in the area, he was flagged down by two individuals who claimed there was an obvious mechanical problem with the victim's vehicle. As the victim exited his vehicle to inspect the exterior, the first suspect pushed the victim to the ground, put a gun to the back of his head, and stated, "Give me everything or I'll kill you." Both suspects then removed property belonging to the victim and Papa John's from the victim's pockets. The suspects fled the scene in a green Chevy Lumina with Maryland tags. Detective McDermott arranged transportation for the victim to the District 5 station, where a thorough interview was conducted. During this interview, the victim stated he could identify the two suspects that robbed him, while two other suspects remained in the vehicle and provided the tag number on the Lumina. Through the use of police databases and investigative skills, Detective McDermott quickly determined these suspects were responsible for several recent robberies throughout Prince George's County, to include carjacking the Chevy Lumina the previous day. With this information, Detective McDermott began contacting investigators in the Regional Investigation Division, Northern and Central regions, and surrounding jurisdictions. As a result of these contacts, Detective McDermott discovered the vehicle was stopped by the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. All four suspects had been arrested and were currently at their 6th District Police Station. Detective McDermott immediately responded to the station to interview and photograph all 4 suspects. The photographs were put in an array and shown to the Papa John's employee, who identified the 2 primary suspects as the individuals who assaulted and robbed him earlier that evening. With time of the essence, Detective McDermott obtained arrest warrants for the 2 primary suspects who implicated the other 2 suspects who acted as lookouts during the robbery spree. As a result of Detective McDermott's persistence and resourcefulness, this violent armed robbery spree was ended. Numerous armed robbery cases were closed, and 4 violent felons were removed from the streets of Prince George's County. Detective McDermott has earned the Detective of the Year award. No.
One time right here, please. We're going on 3. 1, 2, and 3. Stuff, Gaston.
Detective Harrison Sprague, Organized Retail Crime Unit. In late May 2014, investigators were informed of a possible fraud concerning approximately $47,000 from Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union. Investigators were advised that 2 people had obtained vehicle loans and the titles were never sent to the bank. These loans were never paid and went into default. The case was assigned to Detective Sprague. As Detective Sprague began investigating what on the surface appeared to be 2 fraudulent vehicle loans, he quickly noticed that one loan application was to purchase a vehicle from a business, the other was to purchase a vehicle from an individual. Detective Sprague began researching the business and the individual and realized that the alleged business was owned by the same person that was applying for the second loan. Detective Sprague would soon learn that the business did not actually exist and that there was no business at the address provided. The Organized Retail Crime Unit was later notified that the same 2 individuals were attempting to transfer funds at Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union. Detectives responded to the location and identified the individuals, at which time one suspect was arrested and another was brought in for questioning. Immediately following this incident, the Organized Retail Crime Unit was notified that the same suspects had obtained fraudulent loans from a different credit union. Detectives obtained enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant for 2 suspects' residences. After executing the search warrants, Detective Sprague began sifting through the large amounts of evidence that was recovered. An investigation that started in May would turn into an extremely lengthy investigation that would continue for months. During this time, Detective Sprague would learn that there were numerous suspects involved in a large fraud ring involving numerous aliases for the same suspect, fake businesses, fraudulent loans from numerous credit unions, fraudulent mortgage loans, fraudulent MVA documents, and thefts from numerous auto dealers. The amount of fraudulent funds obtained by the suspects quickly grew to over $700,000. Suspects would soon be identified from several other states, and the known amount stolen would grow to over $1 million. Detective Sprague reached out to HSI for federal assistance, as well as local agencies that were identified in other states. Detective Sprague's attention to detail, persistence, and dedication, with assistance from numerous other detectives and federal agents, would eventually lead to the arrest of 6 suspects, arrest warrants for several other suspects, as well as the execution of numerous search warrants. More than a year later, this investigation continues with the expectation of further arrests and search warrants as more evidence is uncovered and arrestees are interviewed. For his outstanding investigative skills and unrelenting determination, Detective Sprague is awarded the Detective of the Year award.
Right here, 1, 2, and 3. That's great, guys. Thank you. Congratulations.
Sgt Lisa Smith, the Prince George's County Sheriff's Office Warrant and Fugitive Division. Sergeant Smith is the epitome of hard work and dedication within the Warrant Fugitive Division, with devoted efforts in leadership and positive attitude. She can easily be characterized as reliable, collaborative, and motivational while having the willingness to place the goals of the division before her own personal gain. She consistently sacrifices her time to participate in agency and community programs such as Christmas in April and Shop with a Cop. A United States Air Force veteran, Sergeant Smith has shown a level of professionalism and wisdom that has helped her squad members better serve the citizens of Prince George's County. On May 6, 2014, deputy sheriffs in the Warrant Fugitive and Domestic Violence Intervention Divisions, led by Sergeant Smith, were attempting to serve a court-ordered emergency psychiatric service on Maurice White at 5910 15th Avenue in Hyattsville, Maryland. Mr. White's mother stated that her son had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, had not been taking his prescribed medications for some time, and had been spending the majority of his time in the basement of the home, which is where he was when sheriff's deputies arrived. As the deputies made their way into the basement, Mr. White stepped out from behind a wall holding 2 large kitchen knives, one in each hand, pointed toward the deputies. Several loud verbal commands were given for Mr. White to drop the knives, but he did not comply and retreated behind a wall as one of the deputies deployed his taser. Mr. White fell face down behind the wall with his hands under his body. However, it was unclear if the knives were still in his possession. Mr. White repeatedly refused to comply, refused to show his hands, and when he did get up, he was extremely combative. He began kicking the deputies, swinging his fists at them, striking them with a table and other objects from within the room. After a long struggle with Mr. White, the deputies were finally able to gain control of him and transport him to the hospital with minor injuries and for service of the emergency petition. These deputies, all positioned in the small basement of the residence, were confronted with a dangerous individual wielding knives and physically fighting with them, but they remained calm in their attempts to subdue Mr. White. This incident could have had a much different outcome, but the actions and quick forward thinking of these deputies, along with the guidance and supervision provided by Sergeant Smith, prevented Mr. White from harming himself and others, and resulted in him getting the psychiatric evaluation his family requested. Not only was Sergeant Smith involved in this incident from a hands-on perspective, but she was also the on-scene supervisor. In that role, she ensured the team of deputies acted in a safe and professional manner, exercising discretion and restraint. For their actions, Sergeant Lisa Smith and the other deputies were awarded the Office of the Sheriff Bronze Medal of Valor. Sergeant Smith's heroic actions that day could be considered the norm by some, as she regularly places others ahead of herself to accomplish a greater good for the community in which she serves and the squad members she mentors and supervises. Sergeant Smith is a well-rounded and experienced deputy sheriff sergeant who balances the firm enforcement of the law with calm and compassion. She's a true public servant, and the Prince George's County Office of the Sheriff is fortunate to have her and proud to recognize her as one of their own and as their Deputy of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the ceremony. Would you please welcome again Lieutenant Dean Jones for our benediction.
Let's bow for prayer. Father, we thank you for the great detectives that you've placed in Prince George's County and the great work they've done, and we thank you for this opportunity to recognize them. And I pray, Father, that you would bless them as they go out and continue to work and serve the citizens of Prince George's County, and bless us all as we depart, and keep us safe, which in Christ's name we pray. Amen.